Let's talk about citric acid and supplements based on citric acid, which are your citrates. Did you know that most of citric acid is produced as a result of fungal fermentation using black mold, right? So natural labeling doesn't mean fruit derived. And sensitivities reported by some people are not imaginary. They are not acknowledged or investigated either because there is a lot of money behind that manufacturing process. It's very, very cheap, and the majority of supplements on the market, of 95%, would use black mold derived citric acid. So let's just look at what's happening during the fermentation process. What is fermentation? So it's a controlled process, but it's not sterile in the way that you may imagine. So what is controlled there? The pH, temperature, oxygen, sugar load, some metal ions control, strain genetics, which sort of mold is used. What is not controlled or guaranteed is the secondary metabolites, whether there is cell wall fragments, whether there's any organic acids there, and just batch variability. It is a fermentation process. It's never guaranteed the end results, what's in there. And what purification means. So every company would state that it is pure, that there is no residue, that there is no mold material left in the product, and there is filtration system in place which removes fungal biomass but does not remove soluble metabolites and enzymes or fragments. And there is some certain acidification happening when citric acid is released, and it generates all sorts of waste that an average person wouldn't know of. And we have crystallization at the end of purification, which purifies by solubility, and some small molecules still remain in there, and what they are, no one knows because it's not disclosed. So what purification is not designed to remove after the fermentation process is done is fungal metabolites, as I said above. So they're water-soluble, low molecular weight, and they're non-volatile, and cell wall fragments. So whatever fragments of other cells are there present, they're still there. Trace organic acids, residual fermentation byproducts, and enzyme remnants. So these are not toxins per se in the regulatory sense. They are biologically active residues. So regulations don't test for them, industry doesn't look for them, and consumers are told citric acid is safe, right? So basically citric acid is grass. It's generally recognized as safe by FDA, TGA, and so I'm talking about the regulatory bodies in the United States and here in Australia. And testing focuses on heavy metals, gross contamination, and microbial count only. And there is no requirement to test for mycotoxin precursors. So mycotoxins, that's your mold, the fungal antigenic fragments, and immune reactive residues. So, and there is always a batch to batch variation in what we have there in terms of microbial count and mycotoxin residues. So why some people react and some don't is because maybe a person would have had some mold exposure history and a compromised gut barrier, some histamine sensitivity. Again, there is a history of a deeper issue. Histamine sensitivity is not a diagnosis, it's a result. Impaired detoxification pathways and nervous system hypervigilance. So we always come back to the safety, to the nervous system regulation when we do our healing, and whenever we observe any reaction, any food reaction, any substance reaction, allergies, asthma. So industry doesn't acknowledge this because it's not universal, it's not profitable, first and foremost, and it's not easy to measure. So fermentation is dirty by nature, and purification is chemically elegant, but biologically it's not pure in any shape or form. And food grade only means legally acceptable, not biologically inert. So clean enough for population statistics is not clean enough for sensitive systems or for someone who wants to be healthy long term. So if you're asking this question, you already know the answer at your intellectual level that the system optimizes yield and cost, not biological subtlety. So, and that's the gap. So, how would you react to that personally if you know this information, how citric acid is made, and what supplement you're going to choose from now on, and where do you search for the excipients? And in the previous video, I did explain that TGA has all documentation on their website, but it's not very easy to look for it. So I have an access to a database which provides all the documentation for each supplement that I work with, and I choose very, very carefully. And I encourage you to start thinking about excipients and start thinking about where the active ingredients come from.